together and to have this type of public forum. Two of the biggest concerns and challenges we face are the condition of our housing stock and the many neighborhood issues we face, as well as the alarming recent uptick in gun violence, drugs, and other public safety issues that's facing our community. These are two of the most concerning topics, questions, and complaints that we as council representatives hear on a regular basis from our constituents. Tonight I've asked our Director of Development, Crystal Sertic, to give a brief presentation on neighborhood and housing issues and current strategies and programs that are being implemented to address these challenges. We will also hear from our Police Chief, Tim Jackson, on a number of public safety issues facing our city, what is being done, and or proposed to combat these many problems. After their brief presentations, we will then open the forum up to specific questions. If you have a question, you can either stand up and shout it out. You can come up here to the mic. We can have someone come around. I know this doesn't reach that far, to try to ask questions, specific questions to the chief, to the mayor, to the Director of Development. Also in the back room, in the back of the room, if you didn't get a chance to sign in, it'd be nice to have information, your address, maybe an email address of where you're at, just so we know who is here and how many people were here. There's a sign-in sheet on the back. It's on the way out if you didn't do that. At this time, I just wanted to make some brief introductions before I turn it over to the mayor to say a few words. If the current council people, if you would just stand up a minute, I wanted to recognize we have Councilman Reynolds up here, Councilwoman Karuba, we have Councilman DeVersa, Councilwoman Eklund, Councilman Sheldon, and Councilman Faulkner in the back. So most of the council is here this evening. Okay, we also have, I believe, County Legislator Wilfong. Dave Wilfong is here. Dave, somewhere there he is. He's done. And we also have our Sheriff, Jim Quattrone, is here tonight as well. So thank you for coming and supporting this event. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mayor Sundquist just to make a few remarks before our department presentations. Mayor Sundquist.
Thank you, President Dulce. We appreciate all of you being here tonight to listen, to understand, and really to help us as a city better understand what's going on in your neighborhoods, on your streets. We have a good understanding for the most part, but the reality is you all live where the action's happening. You all know what's going on in the areas that you're at, and we want to rely on your feedback tonight after we hear from some of the work that our Department of Development and the code enforcement, as well as our police department, has been doing to engage the community, to help, and to support. The one thing I do want to talk about tonight, just briefly, is to help you all understand the amount of resources that are available. And I'm sure that both the Chief and Crystal may talk briefly about this. Is that we recognize that there is a lot going on in the city, but we, like most organizations, do have limited resources. And how we move those resources around is based on the feedback we get from you. So tonight, as you provide us some information, some thoughts, some comments, we take that back and we take it to heart. And we say, okay, well, if we're seeing hot spots in certain areas or we're hearing more about these things, that's where we start to move our resources, move our providers, move what we have in those areas to better control what goes on in your neighborhoods. So again, on behalf of the Mayor's Office, I want to just thank you all here. Thank you to the council members as well as to my staff that are here tonight talking about the work that we're doing. And if you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to call my office. Many of you have probably talked to my staff, both Zach and Michaela in the back, if you guys could raise your hand. Those are the members of my staff at the Mayor's Office that respond to your calls, answer you, help you get the whatever you need, and they're truly invaluable. And so thank you all for being here tonight. I'm excited to learn, to listen, and to hear your feedback. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to do it right now. Okay. It's my pleasure to briefly introduce Stephen Cobb, who is the Executive Director of the Mental Health Association. He's got some information for you, and I think he's going to do a 30-second commercial of sorts. So I want to just introduce Stephen Cobb from Mental Health Association.
I'm Stephen Cobb. I'm the Executive Director of the MHA. We're located at 31 Water Street, which is in the Gateway Center. We share a space with Community Helping Hands and St. And we provide support for people who are with mental health issues and folks who have substance use issues. We also provide support for family members who are supporting people who might be still using or experiencing mental health issues or are in recovery. We're open every morning from 9:30, or Monday through Friday. We're open at 9:30. We're open till 7 at night. You can come down and visit us. We're a very friendly place to access mental health and substance use services because we're open and people can just walk in without an appointment and be connected with one of our peer specialists who can begin the process of helping folks who need help. We can navigate to the other resources that are in the community. We provide Narcan trainings. Narcan is a drug that will reverse an opioid overdose. Reversing somebody who's experiencing an overdose can be the first step in recovery or a reconnection to recovery, so we believe this is a very good tool to help our community. We actually have Narcan over there on the table. If any of you would like to be trained on how to use Narcan, I will teach you how. It's a very easy process. We like to now think of Narcan as first aid. So just like you have Band-Aids in your first aid kit and you might have Neosporin in your first aid kit, you should also have Narcan in your first aid kit. You might think you don't know or would ever experience someone in overdose, but the chances are pretty high that you could. So I'm very happy to train you on this. We have literature over there about our programs, and I'm also happy to answer any questions relating to mental health or substance use or what type of services we have in the community. We have numerous mental health and substance use services in our community. Sometimes we don't know how to access them. So even if you need help with that, you could give us a call or come down and ask us, hey, how do I help someone who needs to get into rehab? And we can help you with that. So it's good to be here. We want to be of service, so please come over and talk to me. And Sean Jones, who's one of our peer specialists, is also over there too. So thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. We really appreciate all the work that MHA does in the community. I know we're still working on the PowerPoint and getting that up. Thank you to our IT department over here from the church. Thank you, Connie. But I do want to, we'll soon introduce Crystal Sertic, who's our development director. Before we do that, I've been asked by IT to stretch this out for an extra minute while she loads the PowerPoint. So I got the opportunity yesterday to meet with the over 60 pastors from churches across the city. And it was a really unique opportunity. We had members of the council join us, and we got a chance to talk about what does it look like to help us address homelessness here in the city of Jamestown. It was a really great opportunity for us to connect with not only resource providers but churches. But one of the things I didn't get to tell them is I haven't had so many ministers staring at me at one time that I felt like I needed to give confession. So we're really, it was a really wonderful thing to be able to talk to them, and we want to use these forums to help engage. I do want to say that having these forums, as President Dulce has put together, they're a little different than a city council meeting. In a city council meeting, you're there, the city council's there to do business, right? They'll hear from the public, they'll hear your ideas, but they have a really limited amount of time that they give members of the public to speak. Tonight's really a chance to get your thoughts, to get your feelings on it, and to learn a little bit more about the work that we're doing. So we're excited to have this, and thank you to President Dulce for putting this together and organizing it. I'll turn it over to see if we've got, are we good to go?
Do you have any Jeopardy music?
I have no Jeopardy music. Seems like a very church thing to say, so I appreciate it. But while we're pulling that up, I will introduce Crystal Sertic, who is our Director of Development at the City of Jamestown. Crystal's been serving in this position since 2020, where before that she was the city's principal planner for the City of Jamestown. She serves many hats. Not only is she part of the Department of Development, she serves with the economic arm of the city, Urban Renewal Agency, as well as helping to run our local development corporation. She also oversees staff that do code enforcement in the city. Common misconception, there are not like 20 people that do code enforcement. There are only a handful. We can count them on one hand. So there is a lot of work to be done across the city, and we thank Crystal for all of her work that she does. But I will invite her up if she wants to say a few words before we get the PowerPoint up. Okay. Crystal Sertic.
A little shorter than he is. Well, while we're still waiting for the PowerPoint, thank you. I did send it off a little bit late, so I apologize for that. And believe me, there's not a whole lot in there. I tried to keep it brief, but it's great to see such a large crowd. I'm actually really happy to be here and to be able to share some of what our department does. You know, as you probably are all very well aware, we are facing a pretty monumental task. Code enforcement being probably one of the, code enforcement and housing really being at the top of our list. It takes up a lot of our time and energy. Every day, all day long, we're on call 24/7. It's not uncommon to get a call from one of these guys in, you know, the middle of the night, or, you know, on a weekend, and it's been a really great partnership with the police department, with the fire department, our other departments. That's something that we have worked very hard on over the past couple of years, is to really develop a collaborative partnership with each other. The issues that we're all facing are not independent of each other, so they are not separate. We can't departmentalize them, right? So, you know, having that collaborative relationship has really been important and has helped us, I think, make some strides and make some changes to some of our processes. But, you know, like I said, the task is pretty monumental. While we're still working, I'm just going to read to you the mission of our department. We'll get that slide right out of the way. And this is something that, as I read it, we work on. We have, like the mayor said, we wear lots of hats in our department. We are the Department of Development, so that is inclusive of economic development, community development, neighborhood development. You think of all of those things. It's housing, it's businesses, it's pretty much touch everything in some way, shape, or form that we do in the city. So the mission of the City of Jamestown Department of Development is to provide economic, social, and cultural opportunities through a variety of public and private partnerships and resources to engage, educate, and empower our citizens, create vibrant and safe neighborhoods with decent and affordable housing options, and to generate new investment that will improve the overall quality of life, well-being, and sustainability of the entire community. That's a whole lot of stuff. And I do want to give my team kudos. We have a small team of 12, 3 of which are code enforcement officers, and that's a lot that we do. We have a very diverse team and really diverse backgrounds, but we all work together really well. So even though we are kind of working on all of those different things, we are doing that as a team. Housing and housing conditions impact economic development and vice versa, so you really can't look at neighborhoods and downtown development and business development as separate things. They all have to be worked on at the same time. It's not a this or this. It has to be this and this and this. So I'm going to just keep going, Connie. So how do we achieve our mission? There are a number of things that we do. Like I said, we work on economic development, community development, neighborhood stabilization, citizen engagement, collaborative partnerships, and policy development. I want to focus on neighborhood stabilization. I think that that is probably key to a lot of what we're all here to discuss tonight. And I'm just going to really high level highlight some of the things that we do within that. And then you can ask me questions, I guess. So under neighborhood stabilization, code enforcement is one of our most important tools. As I mentioned, we have 3 code enforcement officers right now, and I think we're up. I'm going to keep going. Code enforcement is, it can be very challenging. Like I said, we are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not uncommon to receive a call from the police department at 11:30 at night or 2 o'clock in the morning. If there's a fire that needs some level of code enforcement involvement, whether it's to determine that a building is still structurally sound or conditions of the house may be in question, that's the phone call that we get. So, you know, we're always there, always at the ready. Sometimes maybe a little sleepy, but I think one of the challenges and something that is a lot of people I find don't know is that our authority stops at the sidewalk. So unless we are given access to an interior of a property, and that is by way of a property owner inviting us in, a tenant inviting us in, a property manager inviting us in, so someone who has the authority to open the door, or the police department has control of the property for whatever reason, or the fire department. We can also go in if EMS is there, if we're called in by Child Protective Services or another agency, but they have to have control of the situation and the property before we are able to enter the premises. That is law, that is, and it's a challenge. A lot of times we may be able to or may need to identify interior health, life, and safety issues that could ultimately condemn a property, but we can't do that unless we are able to access the interior. So that's just a clarification that I wanted to make. The other thing I want to say is we have condemned a lot of properties in the past couple of years. That is not something that we do lightly, and it's not something that we ever really want to do, because most of the time when that happens, we are potentially displacing somebody. In those situations, when that happens, we work really hard with those people to try to get them access to resources, connect them with somebody, another agency, or whatever the need is. We try very hard to work with them, with our partners, and I'll touch on our partner agencies, to make sure that they have a place to go and they have a place to rest their head. So, you know, I just want to make sure that is really clear. We do not take condemnation and displacement of people lightly, and that's not something, that is not our goal at all. So additional, I guess, tools in the toolbox. We are the City of Jamestown is what's called an entitlement community. So every year we receive an allocation of funding from HUD. That funding is inclusive of what's called the homeowner occupied, it allows us to do homeowner occupied rehabs, and that's the Home Investment Partnerships Program. That allocation is roughly around $300,000, a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on the HUD's formula. And then the other part of that is our community development block grant funding. And Connie, if you want to just go to the next slide, that's the, yes, perfect, thank you. In between there, you see rental rehabs. That's a program that we are working on right now. We have had it in the past. We are working on rolling that back out with some funding that we received. It's from American Rescue Plan, but it was through the CARES Act. So we will have a rental rehab program, hopefully rolling out in the next couple of months. In addition, we have the Hands-on Neighborhoods program that we are doing in tandem with the Chautauqua County Land Bank. So that's a neighborhood cleanup program. It's one of those programs that it brings people together. The hope is to empower people to kind of take a look at your neighborhood, get involved. You know, you do a neighborhood cleanup, you make a difference in that day, and hopefully make some connections with your neighbors. So we will have another one of those events coming up in October. And you don't have to participate in a scheduled Hands-on Neighborhoods event to do your own. We do have an online toolkit that helps you plan your own. So if you want to do one in your own neighborhood, that is a resource that's available to you. We'll supply the bags and the gloves and whatever else you need, the garbage pickers, and our Parks Department will actually come around and pick up the full garbage bags when you're done. So feel free to let me know if that's something that you'd be interested in for your neighborhood. The next item is 19A actions. So that's a real estate provision that allows us to take title to properties, problem properties that are vacant, abandoned, other things that might be wrong with the property. They might be condemned, they might be unsecured, need windows boarded or that sort of thing. The key really though is that it's a vacant property. There's no one living in that property. And that allows us to clear out any back liens. It is a legal process, so it does take a period of time. But once we get through that process, we actually are able to take clean title, and then the goal is to turn around and sell those properties to first-time homebuyers or someone who is going to live in the property for at least 5 years, has a renovation plan. It's a case-by-case kind of basis, so each one is a little bit different. Each one needs a different level of rehab, but it's something that we're hoping will help to create new home ownership and more home ownership, which also increases pride in your neighborhood, pride in your property, all of the things that go along with actually owning your own home. The next item is zombie lawsuits. So if you're not familiar with zombie properties, that's also a real estate provision through New York State that allows communities to file a lawsuit against banks who have stalled in the foreclosure process. So they may sit on a property for years at a time and not proceed with a foreclosure. This allows us to force them to expedite that process so those properties are not sitting vacant and not continuing to deteriorate. And then we have a joint grant, sorry, I'm reading it from my phone and it's a little wonky. Joint grant programs with partner agencies. I'll talk about those partner agencies, but we do work really closely with a number of other agencies in a couple of different ways. Sometimes it's applying for grants that we will do together as a joint effort, and then sometimes it's layering grants that we have, that they have, and trying to really pool our resources in a really strategic way. Then the ARPA, which is American Rescue Plan programs. These are programs that are either approved or in the process of being discussed and considered. The roof, sewer lateral, and water line replacement or repair program, that is underway. We have around 110 properties that will be receiving this grant, and it will be, most of them, I would say 95% of them, are for roofs. It's up to $25,000. The grant program, the application period actually ended June 30th, and there's a serious need. That was probably the most profound thing that we found is, and I think as you probably know, if you're a homeowner, if you don't have a solid roof or a solid foundation, those are the two, I think, most important things for your property. So We're also working on the 19A rehab program, and that would allow us to establish a fund that will allow us to make those repairs to those properties that we will be acquiring through the 19A process. That's something that will continue to be able to sustain, because the people who we are anticipating participating in that program will essentially act as a loan, as a revolving loan. So they'll be able to make the repairs, and then they'll pay back the loan for the repairs that were made. The goal of that is not to set anyone up for failure with a house that they can't actually bring up to code and make the essential repairs to. So we're also looking at a receivership program. What that is if there are properties that are occupied by tenants and they need significant repairs made to them, and landlords are unresponsive and not taking care of those things, this would allow us to, through the court system, appoint a receiver agency, and that agency then could come in, make those repairs, collect rents in lieu of the landlord collecting rents for a period of time until the landlord either pays back or the program is paid for through the rents that are collected. So it kind of gives the agency that's appointed the ability to step in, intervene, make sure that vital repairs are being made, and then property can be turned back over to the landlord, or there may be another resolution where the landlord steps away from the property. CCLB, that's the Chautauqua County Land Bank program. So we had a presentation from the Land Bank. They have a number of programs that they are working on. I don't want to go into too much detail because I feel like I'm talking too long. But our partnership with the Land Bank is really, it's been wonderful. And I think it's been really critical to success and to being able to take some control of some of these properties. Strategic acquisition and disposition, that has also been approved through ARPA, and that is establishing a fund to identify properties that either need to be purchased and the city should acquire, and I use the word strategic because a lot of thought and a lot of planning goes into that. So it might be for neighborhood stabilization. It might be that we need to acquire it and either rehab it or demolish it, because that is a tool that we have as well. So, and that also can be utilized for commercial properties in addition to residential. I listed strategic acquisition and disposition again. So we have rescue plan funding. We also have always done strategic acquisition and disposition. We do receive some funding through our HUD funding each year that we set aside for demolitions, and there never seems to be enough for that. So, you know, we're hopeful that we can utilize some of those ARPA funds to be able to make a difference. And then policy development. So right now in process, we're working on a nuisance ordinance update, a rental inspection ordinance, a vacant property ordinance, and those are the three top ordinances that we're working on. We also have planning and zoning in our department. We are going to be releasing a request for proposals shortly for a new comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan was last done in 1998, and a zoning code update, and that also dates back to 1998. And then we have various existing plans that have been done over the course of several years that are really valuable that we're working to implement. Really quick, collaborative partners, all of City of Jamestown departments, Chautauqua County Department of Health and Human Services, Chautauqua County Land Bank, the Jamestown Renaissance Corporation, Chautauqua Opportunities Incorporated, CRIC, Code, our local foundations, health and wellness service providers like MHA, and then direct assistance service providers like Department of Social Services, Salvation Army, UCAN. So, you know, we really have a vast network of partners that we work with every single day in many different situations, oftentimes that we are connecting with through a code enforcement action. But, you know, we have established really great relationships with those partner agencies, and we utilize them all the time. And then last slide is we also are inclusive, the mayor mentioned, the Jamestown Local Development Corporation and the Jamestown Urban Renewal Agency fall all within the Department of Development. And then there's contact information. You can find us on the website under the Department of Development. Phone number and email address are there as well. That's all I got.
Thank you, Crystal. We appreciate it. That's certainly a lot going on. It's about the length of a Jeopardy game, so we appreciate that. Just a little. It's okay. We didn't buzz you. I do want to bring up now Tim Jackson, who is the Chief of Police and the Director of Public Safety for the City of Jamestown. The Chief has been in this role, you're going on 3 years now? Almost 3 years, although he's no stranger, having served in the city's police force for many, many years in various leadership roles. Chief Jackson is the one that helps to keep our streets safe and deals with not only the administrative things, but all of the investigative items that occur here in the city, and has done a phenomenal job. He's a straight shooter. He tells you like it is. And if you don't like it, he'll still help you. So it's been a wonderful pleasure and privilege to be able to have him as our Director of Public Safety and Chief of Police. And I'd like him to come on up and introduce the things we've got going on in the City of Jamestown. Chief Jackson.
So again, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. What I've prepared is a presentation on one of the most important issues we're dealing with in law enforcement and the community, and that's gun violence. And of course, with gun violence comes narcotics. So those are by far our most important issues facing law enforcement and the City of Jamestown from a law enforcement perspective. I need the numbers. Okay. Yes, I have a lot of numbers to go over, so I definitely need our PowerPoint.
You know, technology is great when it works.
Oh, yeah, I will. Joining me tonight, I almost forgot. Sorry. At the end of the table, Captain Scott Forster. He's in charge of our patrol division. And Community Resource Officer Matt Reinhardt. You also will notice our Facebook page. He is the one, it's been a long time secret, but he is actually the one that does the posts for our page. So. All right, well, I'm gonna start. I'll read the numbers. So the first slide I had was the summary of confirmed shootings we've had. So this year, up until August 14th, that's the most recent statistics I have, we've had 16 confirmed shootings, compared to last year was 19. That was the entire year. So 2021, we had 19 for the whole year, and up till August of this year, we've had 16. And when I talk about confirmed shootings, I mean there's evidence, shell casings, someone was hit, bullet holes in a house, apartment, car, a firearm was definitely used in these cases. In 2022, our cases involving reports of firearms have increased 4.2% compared to year-to-date 2021 and 76.2% compared to the 5-year average. And the 5-year average is 27.8 cases. So it is an increase. And I'm going to talk about, and the captain's going to address it as well. I'm sure the biggest question is, well, what are we doing about it, right? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Okay. I need to get to the map. There, right there. Okay. So, as you can see from our map, it might be a little bit difficult to see, but our shootings are all over the city, believe it or not. They're pretty scattered. We have them on the south side. We've had them here. They're scattered. So it's not easy to combat this because it's not rocket science. It's very difficult to figure out where the next shooting is going to occur. So they're scattered all over the city. Okay, let's go to the next one. The next one too, after that. Yep, that's good right there. So this year, we've had 48 firearms seized year to date. Again, this is mid-August. Held or recovered by JPD, 48. That's since January of this year. Next slide. Next one. So I'm going to talk about the non-fatal shootings, and these are the shootings that a lot of people have asked me questions about. These are the shootings where people have not been killed, obviously, but cars have been damaged, people's houses have been shot, apartments, their residences. So far, either an arrest has been made or a warrant has been applied for all these people. So we're doing really well on our investigative side because these people are going to be held accountable as much as we can do as a police department. We are arresting people. We are filing for warrants. Next slide. And you can keep scrolling right through. Some of these people, like he is on the top 10 most wanted. We have not found him yet, but we do have a warrant for him. And that's a summary of the recent non-fatal shootings. So recently, as everyone knows, we had the homicide on Prendergast. And as a result of that, 2 people have been charged. And there's not a lot I can say about this case. I can tell you that 2 people have been charged because it's very open. It's still in the very early proceedings of this, but 2 people have been charged with this, and it's an open investigation. That was the recent homicide on Prendergast Avenue. And now I'm going to introduce Captain Scott Forster. He's going to talk about some of our approach to this, and you're also going to see in here, he's going to touch on how we're working with our federal partners to get around bail reform. I know there's a lot of different opinions of the bail reform, but I can tell you the federal system is very severe in punishment. So we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Good evening. Like Chief mentioned, my name is Captain Scott Forster. I'm the Operations Commander at Jamestown Police Department, which is essentially the patrol captain. You're going to see a slide here that has all the details that we've run with our GIVE grant, it's called. The GIVE grant stands for Gun Involved Violence Elimination Grant. This is the 9th one that we've had, the 9th year we've participated in the GIVE. Before that was, I believe, Project Impact, which was kind of on the same lines. GIVE focuses not only on gun violence, but it focuses on domestic incidents, community engagements. It helps pay for our crime analysts, which then obviously assists with us with the information we need to run our targeted patrols. As Chief mentioned, the shots fired calls, warrant services, and then a word that you've heard a lot tonight already, and you're going to hear more, is partnerships. We work very closely with all the local partnerships as well as federal partnerships to make sure that we're doing as much as we can to fix whatever issues that we're having in our community. I'll apologize now, I have a ton of notes written down as we're going through here, so if I skip around, forgive me for that. So here, this slide right here just has our details that we ran from our last cycle. So the cycle goes July 1st through the following June 30th. And like I said before, the grant covers a wide range of things that we do as far as patrol goes. So last year, ending June of 2022, we had 115 details. They include focused deterrence, which is our domestic violence. We're following up with individuals, make sure they're following court orders, and then giving resources to both the victims and the suspects of domestic violence. Our targeted patrols, our hotspot patrols, community engagements, some of the other things we do some saturation patrols, some unmarked patrols. We have a lot of different things we can do with it, beat patrols, bicycle patrols. It's just a matter of, like Chief said, being in the right place at the right time. Can you go back to that real quick? Sorry. So with the 115 details, there was 26 beat patrols. It's a little bit skewed because if we run a bike patrol, we don't count that as a beat patrol. However, they're out in the community and they're trying to make connections that way. We also have, like Crystal mentioned, work with DOD with the community violence and violence prevention program, which we use, and we put officers on beat patrols for that as well. We had 170 vehicle and traffic stops, issued 104 tickets, and had 101 arrests. So part of GIVE, part of crime analysis is having targeted areas that we're trying to enforce. The unfortunate part with that in like Jamestown, and Chief mentioned, we have a wide range of issues in different areas. So when we target a specific area, sometimes we miss and it goes to a different one. So it's kind of, we put our resources to where the analysis shows they should be, where the data shows. It's just a matter of hoping that, that we catch it when it's there. You can go on the next one. I'm talking about the partnerships with, here's a list of some federal indictments, sentences, and charges. These are a few of them. I'll try not to read them all just to bore you, but it says Denver Comenda pled guilty conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute and to distribute 400 grams of or more of fentanyl, mandatory minimum penalty of 10 years in prison, maximum of life, and a fine of $10 million. Roberto Milan arrested and charged criminal complaint with production and attempted production of child pornography, possession of child pornography, carry a minimum penalty of 5 years in prison, maximum of 30 years, and a $250,000 fine. And you'll see with a lot of these, and Chief kind of mentioned it too, it's narcotics, it's guns, it's violence, and it stems everywhere else. And the importance of these partnerships is they help us with anything that we have. Roberto Morales Sanchez, Ryan Bloom, Rachel Allison, and Katie Calamari. Federal grand jury returned indictment charging these four with narcotics conspiracy, which carries a mandatory minimum penalty of 10 years in prison and maximum of life. Richard Sendall sentenced to permanent state prison term of 6 years with 3 years post-release supervision. pleading guilty to 2 counts, criminal possession of a controlled substance in the 3rd degree, which are both Class B felonies. Let's see what I have here. I got a couple more. Oh, here you go. Aaron Davis, sentenced to a permanent state prison term of 5 years post-release supervision. Pled guilty to criminal possession of a weapon in the 2nd degree, loaded firearm, which is a Class C felony. Sentenced as a violent offender after having 2 felony convictions within 10 years. Alfredo Diaz, convicted of possession with intent to distribute and to distribute fentanyl, which was sentenced to serve 70 months in prison. Federal grand jury on Stephen Mojica Medina, return an indictment charging distribution of heroin, fentanyl, acetyl fentanyl causing death, narcotics conspiracy, possession with intent to distribute heroin, fentanyl, cocaine, crack cocaine, using and maintaining a drug-involved premises, possession of firearms and furtherance of drug trafficking crimes, and being a felon in possession of a firearm and ammunition. Charges carry a mandatory minimum penalty of 30 years in prison, a maximum of life, and $1 million fine. Bradley Knapp, federal grand jury returned an indictment charging narcotics conspiracy, using and maintaining a drug-involved premises, distribution of controlled substances causing serious bodily injury. Charges carry a mandatory minimum penalty of 20 years in prison and maximum of life. So that is the end of that slideshow, but just a couple of things that I wrote down here just to kind of give you. I know you're going to have questions, so I'll keep it short. Like I mentioned, our saturation patrols and our unmarked patrols is something that I've talked to some of you on the phone, and we're more than willing to help in that community if you have issues or you have questions to help with that. But the biggest thing with our partnerships, we work with the GIVE grant. We have meetings every month. We go over all this data. Our crime analyst puts together a really nice presentation for us. It has everybody from, we have the Sheriff's Department that we work with, the DA's office, probation, parole, New York State Police, DOD. So we have a huge range of partnerships that we're all working together on. And the GIVE grant for us is one of our major ways that we're trying to combat the issues that we're having. Thank you.
Presentation part of it. I want to thank Crystal and Tim and Scott for putting together that presentation. I know they're open it up for some questions now to any members of the staff. So if anybody wants to raise their hand, stand up, ask a question to with the police chief or Crystal or the mayor or anybody, certainly we'll open it up to any questions. Anybody have a? Or if you want to write it down, the staff will come around. They have pads and a pen. You can write questions down if you feel more comfortable just writing a question down, and I can read it up here if you want to do that. So, yes, go ahead.
The federally involved cases that you just showed, would you have gotten the feds involved before bail reform? Possibly. Possibly? Okay.
Anyone else? Questions? Yes, go ahead, Doug.
I understand that. And I talked to these folks for a long time. I can't say enough about our police department and what they've done. But the problem is this. The mayor did not talk about the American Rescue Plan and what that's all about. It came to the city as a major opportunity to do a lot of things based on COVID and how COVID reacted to our country and our community. The city of Jamestown actually got more money than the county of Chautauqua. We got 28, how much? $28 million. $28 million. I've been on this gun violence thing for the last year and a half to get the administration on board with supporting public safety. Brought it up a year and a half ago to add more police officers, which, by the way, the regs of the American Rescue Plan are specifically cited for gun violence. It's in the regs. The emphasis on the American Rescue Plan was economic recovery, public health, public safety. So it's taken a year and a half to actually exercise almost the opportunity for more officers to be on the street when we could have had them on the street a year ago. A year ago. Now, they're not even on the street now because there's processes that have to go through in the police department to make them peace officers. Okay? It doesn't automatically happen. It takes time. So, what I'm asking all of you in the community, because you actually elect the people that are representing you, what's the most important thing for you? Public safety, your family. In other words, you don't want to be a victim of your environment, and you don't want the felons to make the environment a victim of you. So we have this opportunity. There's about $8 million left, and I think it's important that the community understands they have every right to demand that public safety be the #1 priority going forward. Economic development is an opportunity, but the opportunity of public safety is for everyone. I don't care if you're 90 or 3 years old. Now here are some ideas. I'm going to ask the mayor if he knows of City Grip. Are you familiar with City Grip?
I'm not, but it's...
Okay. City Gun Violence Reduction Insight Portal, representing the whole country. It's based on the following: tracking analytics, crime gun intelligence centers, track gun violence, Mayor's Office of Gun Violence Protection and Prevention, open data and transparency, gunshot detection, crime prevention through environmental design, early intervention systems, domestic violence danger and lethality assessments, safe passage, secure gun storage, extreme risk law implementation, NISCF denial investigations, disarm domestic abusers, family justice centers, focused deterrent programs, street outreach, hospital-based violence intervention programs, intimate partner violence intervention, violence reduction fellowships, trace every gun crime, submit crime gun ballistics, multidisciplinary homicide and shooting incident reviews, and problem-solving hotspots. We don't have to reinvent everything. This is here for us to use. We can use the American Rescue Plan in a lot of different ways, and we can hope something will happen. But what needs to happen in this community is we're going to be safe and believe that they're going to continue to be safe in their community. So I would suggest, with the money that's there, that another $2 million of it be given to the public safety side, where more officers can be involved, because it's just started. So I asked the mayor what is his most important role as a mayor, and I would assume it's public safety. Therefore, I would hope that we would embark in following what's necessary is to assist our police department, provide them with the equipment, the manpower. They don't have a street crimes unit. They don't have highway patrol people actively enforcing speeding. How many people have a problem with speeding? How many people have a problem with noise? This is where it takes place right here. So I guess my question, that I don't want to dominate, this is your meeting, not my meeting. But I've been involved in this too long. I've been in many city council meetings. Everyone can testify about gun violence. And now, just in May, the city president said we are finally using the money because the first budget had like $150,000. So I guess I wanted to ask everyone here, what would you rather have her spend $8 million on? Public safety or some of the things that have limited value? And my question, final question is this, deals with housing. How many houses have been condemned and still have the orange sign on them, and we're still trying to work out the process to take them down? I've gone by houses for years with the orange sign. Other communities bring a bulldozer and tear them down. Sue us. Sue us. Because crime and violence and victims of environment are part of the problem we have because we have allowed too long for these houses to stay up. Thank you.
Could you introduce yourself, please? Do you know who you are?
I'm Doug Champ. I live at 225 Bowling Street. I'm 77 years old. I've got 3 children, 3 grandchildren. I'm a veteran and I worked for the city for 35 years in Board of Public Utilities. Thank you.
We'll take another question, but just to address Mr. Champ, Mr. Champ, thank you for that. I will say that I've worked directly with the City Council to allocate several $1 million to adding police officers and adding firefighters. We've already committed to that. We've actively been hiring. We have 3 open spots right now. So if you have friends, family members, kids that want to come back to Jamestown and work for our police department, I've got a spot for them with the chief. We have already hired our firefighters. We added 4 new firefighters. We're looking for 3 new police officers. We've already committed several $1 million just to that alone with the rescue plan fund. With the housing, and I can let Crystal speak to that, but on average it costs $20,000 to $30,000 to take down a house. $20,000 to $30,000. Every year we allocate $100,000 to $200,000 just for demolitions here in the city of Jamestown. I don't know, Crystal, if you want to say anything else to that.
Yep, I'll add to that. Mr. Champ asked why it takes so long. Part of it is funding. We are limited in the amount of funding we can allocate from our HUD funds to demolitions specifically. The maximum we are ever allowed to allocate is about $150,000. It's based on the formula and how much we get, but it's right around $150,000 at the most. The city does have a line item that they do also contribute roughly $100,000 towards demolitions. The other issue, though, really is there are a lot of issues, right? Condemnations. We don't always want to tear down a house that has been condemned. Condemned houses can sometimes be fixed. Sometimes they just need to be cleaned. So if a house has been condemned, the immediate goal is not necessarily to tear it down. The other part of that is with the pandemic, we are still seeing serious delays in everything. Contractors are backed up. We have a limited number of demolition contractors. Demolitions oftentimes require a contractor who is certified to do abatement of lead and asbestos. So that also adds another layer of expense to a demolition. So it's not as simple as it's condemned, let's go tear it down. There is a process that we have to follow. There are funding limitations. And the goal is not always to immediately go tear something down. Really, it's how do we remove the blight in the best way possible and stabilize the neighborhood. So there are a lot of factors. I agree. It can be very frustrating to see something be condemned and to not have it abated in a timely manner. But we have to go through a legal process, and we have to go through the process that is available to us, and we do that, and we do try to do that as quickly as we can.
Okay. Thank you. Just a couple of questions that were submitted, probably to the chief. Can anything be done about extreme noise levels and speeding cars, motorcycles on the north side, specifically the Lakeview Avenue area? Loud sound systems, vehicles, very loud exhaust, motorcycles, etc. What are some of the things that are being done, if you want to mention some of the programs?
The issue with loud noise complaints, certainly something can be done. The problem is that we cannot make an arrest unless the officer hears it himself. So if they're not physically there and hear it, they cannot make an arrest. That's 90% of the problem. However, I will say on behalf of council, they for the first time in many years, have allowed us to get to 65 police officers, which was previously 60. One of those officers was going to be strictly used for loud noise complaints.
Okay, thank you. Just another one here. This has to do with homeless. I know that the mayor mentioned a little bit about that. It's a problem that's been just creeped up here in the last several months. They just wanted to know what's being done about homeless people under the bridge. People who walk to and from work don't feel safe. Also, what's being done to house women who are homeless. I don't know if you want to handle that. I know you mentioned some of that, but if you want to add on to that.
So to address that, first and foremost, many people don't realize there are only 2 shelters here in the city. There is one for men, and there's one for women and children of domestic violence. That's it. Right? Let's keep that in mind. The challenge that we originally have seen, and I've talked to all of our resource organizations and our faith communities about, is that on average there would be a census done of the number of people that are homeless here in the city of Jamestown. Many years that has been about 25 to 30 people. In the last several months, we have now seen an increase of over 70 people or more in just certain areas. So it is risen rapidly across the city. In many cases, it's visible. We've always had homelessness. Let's be clear about that. We've always had it. It has not been as visible as it has been. With the change in the rules of the pandemic, with the increase in evictions, with the movement of people, we are seeing more and more in our community. We're aware of that. We also realize and have talked to our resource providers, those that work in the homeless field, have found to be stretched very thin. For example, one of our main organizations that does census counting and supporting our homeless population has one individual that covers street outreach in all of Chautauqua County. And that's based on a variety of factors, right? So from the city's perspective, we're saying how do we get more resources to those providers, and how do we bring in more community members to help deal with that process? So we've met in the last couple days. We've met with the majority of the members of our homelessness coalition in the county, and we have met with, last night as I mentioned, over 60 faith leaders in the city of Jamestown and other parts outside. What we've seen in other cities, and when I've talked to other mayors, they have found that when the faith leaders and the resource providers work together to create a partnership, then they've been able to tackle emergency sheltering, getting resources to where people are, getting folks off the street. That's a model that we are trying to do right here in the city of Jamestown. And in the next 2 weeks, we'll be bringing both those groups together to start to look at that model. Because we're afraid when winter comes, when the snow comes, we're going to start to see people in abandoned homes. We're going to start to see people potentially dead on the street. And that's something that we do not want to happen. So we're working with those organizations together in order to try to tackle this issue.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. My name is Albert Guerra. I'm a resident of Jamestown. I've been here just over 2 years. And the fact that you're talking about homelessness, this is something that I would like to share. I wrote this down because I'm an old guy and I don't want to forget. So I just want to say I want to address the safety issues with the ever-growing homeless population migrating to Jamestown. And what are the numbers pertaining to Jamestown people who are homeless, who are from Jamestown, versus the 70 people or more that you're talking about? We don't want Jamestown to become a magnet for the homeless and all the safety, economic issues, commerce, and problems of imposition that comes with it. The newspaper mentioned all the research our city government has been doing from cities that are already in it and overrun by it. Why use those cities as models? Create your own model to scale down this nemesis, taking place by setting examples, by by hand-up solutions rather than handout. Jamestown will become a magnet, and doing so will create issues beyond our ability to handle it. It is okay to help down on your luck individuals, but really, most of those individuals are not open to solving issues of this nature. Too much help perpetuates the enabling of such elements of degrading presence to a community. Use the tool of cause and effect and put it on the table to help make better your decisions to answer our problems facing us today. This is a big one that needs immediate attention. Is not to overtake our community as it does in others. Jamestown's mantra should be to give a hand up, not a hand out, and stick to that by being firm. We know there are exceptions to all rules, but doing so should not be to the detriment of the community. Perhaps Jamestown can be a model of how to handle massive homelessness going on. In giving hand-up solutions, make the homeless people that are being helped earn their way by helping us clean up our city and the areas where we are short on personnel to accomplish these tasks. It will also give them an important feeling of purpose as a part of being something bigger than that for themselves, and that is our community. And I just want to ask one question about what is the policy on vagrancy in Jamestown, New York. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I'll come back. I just kind of get through these here too.
You want to answer that question?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Chief, I don't know if you want to talk a bit about it?
I believe what you're referring to is loitering. In order for someone to be charged with loitering, they have to be gathered in a place and about to or planning to commit a crime. So that really doesn't apply.
The other thing to note, just so everyone is aware, under the current laws, let's say you are loitering, right, and you are arrested. It's an appearance ticket. So you are issued a ticket while you are right there, right? You're not taken back, you're not booked, and are we ever going to see that person in court? Probably not, right? So there is a bit of a process to that makes it difficult for us. You'd think that, we got to arrest him and take him back somewhere, right? That's not actually how the loitering law works.
Thank you. Can you follow up on that, Chief, with, I know that there's been a movement on each shift to kind of look through the downtown area to try to remove if there's large numbers or people in that area and how that's working?
Yes, on every shift our officers meet with the people mostly on North Main Street underneath the viaduct and try to move them along, but also what they've done is hand out information for them to try to get help. So they're not just going down there and saying, go somewhere else. They're actually handing out pamphlets to try to get the people help. So we've been doing that for about a week now.
All of our officers are equipped with resource cards and information for individuals. And we've also been asking our resource providers to go down there. They have been going down to various areas to help provide additional resources.
Another question for the Chief. Please explain what our new police officer for quality of life will be able to do for our neighborhoods. The quality of life officer?
What they're going to be able to do?
Yeah, like examples of what that really means and what they will be targeted to do.
They'll be trying to combat loud noise like I talked about, neighborhood complaints, peace officer issues, any type of issues that are a low priority call. Quality of life complaints, the officer would be dedicated to that. However, we do not have enough officers and there is no one eligible to hire, so that has been put on the side for now. So we do not have a quality of life officer or a nuisance officer because there's no one to hire.
And just to follow up on that, I know that certainly people get frustrated. I know they call when they hear fireworks, when they hear motorcycles and music and noise, and the police officers have to obviously prioritize. They may not get there for an hour or 2 hours, and by that time the incident is over with. But again, with the number of officers that are out there on any given shift, they have to prioritize the importance of the calls, and that can be frustrating. So that was our intent with that quality of life officer that we have put together. Just a matter of getting that person and getting them trained and getting them on board. Hopefully by next summer and spring, we're winding down in the season here, and hopefully things will calm down when the weather gets cooler and darker. But next year, hopefully, we'll have someone in that position. Again, we're frustrated at the time that it's taking to find officers, get them trained, and get them on the street. So, go ahead. You were.
Melissa Paternity, 46 Faulkner Street. I kind of want to touch upon what Al said about the homelessness problem. After living in Austin, Texas for 4 years and watching the homeless problem just escalate immensely there, he had said that, do we really want to go and talk to partners that are having the problem also, because that's what the mayor did there. And in 2018, they allowed the residents of the city of Austin to camp on the street. They approved that, they allowed it. Well, it turned into just a tent city. And recently, last night I Googled some stuff, and I know that there may be people that aren't going to agree with what I say right now, and I really don't care. Do not offer food to homeless people, because they do not want food. They want money. If you give people money and you give people food, instead of doing those kind of things, donate money to the soup kitchen. Donate money to the mission, because your money will go a lot farther there than it will be giving that person that next hit of heroin or that next hit of meth. Because that's what's happening. Not every homeless person is an addict. Not every person is mentally ill. I lived in Jamestown for pretty much 47 years of my life, and we used to have really nice mental health places for people to go. We don't even have that anymore.
Yes, we do. Them right over there.
No, I'm not trying to make this an argument. I'm just
No,
stating.
I'm just saying, Sean just raised his hand.
Right.
That's where they are.
I'm talking about Jones Hill. We used to have those programs, and that would help people. And I think that we need to look back into that kind of stuff. I understand that MHA is peer-to-peer. I do understand that. Right in City Hall, there's the Chautauqua County Mental Health. It's right there, right in the building. Are they here? No, Chautauqua County Mental Health.
Mental hygiene.
Mental hygiene, sorry, my bad. As a kid growing up in the city with a mentally ill mother, there were not many resources. There were not many resources. People whispered. It was a stigma. It was a stigma to be mentally ill in the city, and the stigma is still there. People don't want to get help because they're afraid. They're afraid that they're going to lose this or they're going to lose that. And we have to learn how to get these people to know that there are resources that can really, really help them. Not just send them to DSS to fill out an application, or to go to COI and say, oh, well, if you come back with a denial letter, we'll help you. Because that's exactly how it is. You as a lawyer, as a mayor, if you try to fill out one of those applications, you may even need help. Because they're not easy. And I understand that the city doesn't have as many resources, that they allocate out money here and there. But I think that we need to figure out, where is that money going? Because I don't see it. One of the things that we keep talking about is we don't have any police officers. We don't have anybody to hire. We have a sheriff's academy at JCC. Right, for everyone. You know, the superintendent's here tonight, and one of the things that, you know, we've talked about in the police reform committee is that adding on to the school curriculum, police, fire. We live in a city that the BPU is our main viable source, and we don't even have classes for people that live here to learn how to work at the BPU or to the Parks and Recreation Department. We should be teaching our people that live here how to stay here and want to work. For years and years and years, since like 1993 I graduated, most of the people that I graduated with don't live here anymore. And continuing on all those years, those people have left. They don't care about Jamestown. They don't want to stay. They don't want to be teachers. Maybe it's getting a little bit better. Excuse me?
Ms. Hay, do you have I have other questions. I just want to get to other questions. Thank you. Sean, go ahead. You had your hand up. I don't know if you wanted to respond.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to touch on what you were discussing with the homeless population. So one of the things is just kind of know that there are no handouts here in town. Period. There's not. At the MHA, we work with the homeless population on a daily basis. We help them navigate the system through the town. If there is a handout, yes, sometimes we give them a sandwich or a cup of coffee, but that's how we build trust with them so that they will trust us to then go through the process. Okay? And one of the things we have to go through is when we bring them to their appointments, they can sign up for help to get housing, to get food, to get medical assistance, to get a lot of different things. But then there's also rules that are involved in that if they're 15, 20 minutes late for an appointment or miss an appointment on a day, they can be sanctioned for 45 days. So at that point, there is nothing we can do. There is nothing the participant can do. And honestly, there's a lot of times where there is nothing that the officials can do to get around that. They're sanctioned for 45 days. So now we have to wait 45 days in order for them to apply for assistance again.
I'm not talking about I'm saying people walking in and out of places when they come up to people at Tim Hortons, or they're coming up to people begging for money.
I'm explaining the situation of what our participants go through in order to try to get safe housing, you know, and that's nothing, honestly, that the city even has control over. These sanctions and stuff are put at the state and federal level. That's nothing that any of us can change. The only way that can be changed is at much higher levels. So the homeless population here in town does want help. They come to us every day, and we try to help them as much as we can every day. We give them rides to pantries. We've dipped into our own pockets to pay for hotel rooms in the wintertime for a mother and her child. We do these things to help them because they are doing the work to try to get back on their feet. The thing is there are a lot of incidents or situations where there's things just really stacked against them. And we try to support them through that as much as we can, with compassion and with love and with respect, because these are people's brothers, sisters, daughters, sons, their mothers, fathers. Some of them are grandmothers and grandfathers that we help, that are just down on their luck, and we try to help them. And the truth is our city and our police department is going above and beyond to try to help these people get back on their feet. And it's not handouts. It's not.
Thank you. The safety.
Yeah, I want to get that.
I was wondering if the chief mentioned at one point we had 60 officers in Jamestown. You said the council voted we can go up to 55, but
65.
65?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Now, is there a problem with recruiting officers?
Oh, there's a big problem.
Have you thought about going out of the area to recruit?
Yes, we've done that. You still have to be New York State certified, so the person would still have to go through our academy here in Chautauqua County.
The Sheriff's Academy?
Yes. Or an abbreviated academy still through the
Or an
Sheriff's.
academy in New York State, not necessarily Chicago County?
It depends on which academy in New York State,
okay.
but they would still have to go through training.
Not getting people to come here?
No. Yeah. Plus, you have to take the civil service exam, too.
Pardon?
You have to take a civil service exam?
Yeah, I know that.
Okay, good. All right. There's a one in the back there. I know you had your hand up, so I'll go to you. And then I want to read a question here, too. So, go ahead.
I'm sorry, my voice is gone. I just want to say in reference to the young man who felt that the homeless should go around and do, oh God, I'm trying to control myself. Trying to work around the city as far as picking up trash and that, I agree with the gentleman over here. Everyone should be respected and be treated with value. The homeless, because an individual is homeless does not mean that it's beneath anyone. That if everyone falls on hard times, that there is difficulty in everyone's life, that the homeless does not mean that they are drug addicts, does not mean that they have issues that are different from individuals in this community. They should have help and resources and support. There are different communities that have pop-up villages that have different, not tents, but different houses. If we network with other communities, I had also researched, and you can laugh, Missy, I had also researched with other communities, with other places, that there is out west, there is also in New York City, there is in Philadelphia and other places where they had funding through the rescue plan that has not gone through Congress yet, where they actually utilize small houses for homeless. It is not just individuals who are coming into our community, there are individuals in our community who are going to become homeless because there are slum landlords. There are slum landlords who are upping the rent, and there are going to be people who are going to become homeless. There are individuals who are not going to be, because of circumstances, loss of job, economics, that are going to be in that situation. We treat everybody with value. We treat everybody with respect and dignity, regardless. Even if they have issues that have addiction, then we help them. We don't degrade them. That is not how we should be. We should come together as a community and help each other. And as far as violence, there's other programs, and I have given you a slip. It's called CVI. And I don't know if the police officers know, but I know you have the GIVE program, it's Community Violence Intervention, that the community works together with education in the schools, as well as works with the hospitals, works with different agencies, besides just the house with just the other agencies that you mentioned. Works with mental health, works with everyone together to help with behavioral modification, help with therapies, to help individuals who are dealing with violence.
Okay.
And it actually works together in making sure that there is therapy, and for not just individuals who are engaged in violence, people who are violence victims, that you can actually bring back the community itself. And instead of hearing, I sat back here, I could feel my blood pressure going because I could hear the same rhetoric and the same inane comments. Yep. And I'm thinking, how are we actually, we're doing the same thing over and over and hearing the same commentary that is actually, oh God, all I can think of is how we're listening to the same asinine, and I'll say it that way, asinine comments. How does that help? It doesn't.
Okay.
It makes things, you empower people, you don't degrade.
In the interest... I do want to, the sheriff did want to make a couple brief comments about recruitment. So I don't know, do you want to take up?
Actually, a couple things. First of all, on the recruitment, questions were brought up, and I heard somebody bringing people from out of town or whatever. Even if they were police officers and out of town, as the chief mentioned, we have to have an appraisal or assessment by the Department of Criminal Justice Services to determine how much other training they have to have in New York. And then they have the civil service. So we currently have nobody who has the training and qualifications on the civil service list to be hired by any police department in the county. We currently have 14 Chautauqua County residents in the academy, but they have just started, so they won't be ready to even get out of the academy until around May or June of next year. So that is creating a problem. We've looked at other departments, but really we would be just taking them from another jurisdiction. So touch on that. I was at the meeting last night with the homelessness question, and really one size doesn't fit all. And if we look at the problem with homelessness, I have had a little bit of experience working in that field for a few years, and I think we have to look at it as a relief. There are some people that need a handout. They need it right now to survive. But then we need to do a rehabilitation. How we haven't talked to them. What do you see yourself improving? What do you need now to survive? What do you need for the next month to survive? And then moving forward, month after that. So then we have to have a development. It's kind of like that, give them a fish, feed them for a day, teach them to fish, feed them for a lifetime. We have to work with them. I'm guilty. I'll tell people you have to be very careful when you're out there. I encourage people to take the time. But I would say go to St. Susan's and sit down and talk to people and just have a conversation, non-judgmental conversation, find out what's on. But I fed my vice the other night, then I went to 50s to get an ice cream cone, and there was a young man out there that was homeless, asked me for a burger. I would tell people, say, come give him food. We talked for 20 minutes, had dinner together. It was really nice. When the bill came out, when he ordered, they told him what the cost was. He said, well, can we do something different, a little cheaper? Not everybody's trying to abuse the system. Not everybody, and I do think some of the people that we're dealing with that are homeless, are going to be resistant to that help. But I will say Chautauqua County has a lot of resources. We need to know how to access them. And we've been meeting monthly with a behavioral health and law enforcement community together, trying to figure out what are some gaps we have. And there are a lot of gaps, but it's how to tie them together. Mental health associations involved. There are agencies from around the county, police agencies, service providers, and we are continuing to do that. New York State, we're now doing we're going to have a threat assessment management team that is involving people from around the community, all different aspects, and that will meet hopefully bi-weekly, and when we have issues, we'll have a board that will meet quarterly just to discuss how we can move forward with that. But, I hear a lot of stuff about Jamestown. I'm a Lakewood born and raised, and I moved to Jamestown willingly, so I chose to move to Jamestown, and I love the city. I love to be able to walk around the city, and there's a lot of great things happening here. That's right. But I would say what's really, I appreciate the President, the Council, and all the council members for having this. This is a great turnout, but ideally this room would be too packed that we didn't have enough people, enough room in here. Because, we see something, say something, then we have to do something. And I really think what we need is our neighbors. I had a neighbor lady that got home from work one night at 3 in the morning, and she called me the next day and wanted to know why I was up at 3 a.m. Okay? And I asked her why she was up at 3 a.m. And we complain about nosy neighbors, but we need nosy neighbors. And that's why I encourage everybody to do.
What I'd like to do, in the interest of time, there's 3 here that go back to deal with the safety issue. So I'm going to kind of combine those, and then I'll take a few more questions. But we're on kind of a time limit here, so we only have a few minutes left. So this one, basically the police department, the chief, what is the time response if you get a call that says, shots fired, and how many patrols are on duty during the night, and then I'll piggyback that up with what can they or we do as residents when we know there's a drug house, and that house has a scanner and has cameras and knows when you're coming and what you're doing. So if you can kind of remember those three.
Okay.
Shots fired.
I'll try to remember all.
Patrol numbers and...
There's a minimum of 6 total officers working each shift, 7 to 3, 3 to 11, and 11 to 7. So that would mean, at minimum, there's 3 officers on the road, a supervisor, a desk officer, and a jail officer. That's the minimum we can have on the road. If somebody, the response time for a shots fired call is everybody's going to go. Everybody, even if they're on a call, they're going to go as soon as they get there. They're going. Okay. The other question, well, the other question was
about the frustration people have. They know there's a drug house. The people that are there, they have cameras, they have scanners.
We have a tips line, anonymous line you can call. A lot of people have used it. Drug investigations take a very long time. They're very long, sometimes years. It takes a very long time. But it's...
This house that we're talking about has been suspect for over 2 years. And we sit out on the porch and we see drug deals being made right out the street, right out there in broad daylight. We have them cutting through locks with satchels over their arms, which I assume are drugs. Last week, they were gone for several days. They had a dog that was inside, howling and howling. We called, we thought, okay, this might be the perfect opportunity to take care of this poor animal, and you would have access to that house. As soon as that went onto that scanner, there was a vehicle that pulled up, sped up to that house, stopped. The woman ran into the house, and the police were about 10 minutes late getting there.
So if you know someone has a scanner, you can tell the dispatcher that you believe they have a scanner and do not put it out over the police radio.
That's nice to know. I did not know that.
Thank you.
Because I'll tell you, he's got cameras everywhere, and it appears on a big, big screen. And it's more than one street that's involved. And it's sad because the neighborhood is being destroyed. We've had break-ins. Everybody's installing their own cameras now. It's extremely frustrating.
We'll take a couple more questions from the floor. Either you hit, you and you. Okay, go ahead.
I'm Neil Berg. I live at 11 Lakeview Avenue. I'll make it brief. First of all, a compliment for the police. You've done a great job with the fireworks. We had a terrible problem with fireworks, and it's a lot better. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
My main concern is the music blast cars between Falconer Street and 6th Street. I have a regular parade of loud cars going by my house. It's hurting all of our quality of life. It's not hard to listen. Most of them are lowrider, Toyota, and Honda cars with details all over them. And I think they've got speakers mounted somehow on the outside. But my quality of life is just, I don't even want to sit out in front of my house. I talked to an older couple in the neighborhood. They said they can't enjoy their front porch anymore. And I have some other neighbors that are threatening to leave. So, in addition, it's just kind of a lawless feel. You know, I could put up a motorcycle doing wheelies in front of my house at 2 in the morning. That's all we had. I'm used to that. But the music and the speeding are really what need to be addressed. And it's not just on Lakeview. If enough of these people got pulled over and ticketed, then maybe the message would get out. And that's what I'd like to see.
Okay, thank you. And I'll take note of that. Tom, you say bye. Sure.
Hello. Hi, my name is Tom Andalora. I live at 11 West 8th Street, and I don't know, I've been writing about housing and problems in Jamestown for many years now, 7 or 8, 9 years, I don't know. I just have a couple questions and a couple comments. I'd like to just ask the mayor a question and maybe the police chief a question. I live part-time in New York City, and it's a very diverse city, as you all know. I don't see the same diversion in this city. I feel it's a very segregated city. I don't see Hispanic people here today. Yes, there are some, and God bless you. But I'm just saying, in general, I don't see a lot of people of color here. And we are never going to solve the problem that we have in this city with all of the problems until we are all in the room together. How are we going to do that? So my question to the mayor and to the police chief is, this meeting tonight, what did you do to get Latin people whose neighborhood this crime is taking place in? What did you do to get them to come to this meeting? That's one question I have for you, and then I just have one short thing after that.
So I can say from our office, this is a city council sponsored event, although it's not a official city council meeting. We did put information out not only on social media and the newspaper, we also disseminated it, especially to the Hispanic churches, which we find a lot of contact with, as well as a lot of our other churches and other faith-based groups that are connected. We didn't have any requests to do any type of like door hangers or things like that.
But that's not true, because I wrote you myself.
I'm not saying that we had any requests from the city council or things like that. This is an open forum for everyone.
Right, but you're the mayor, so why wasn't there something where you go door to door to try to talk to the Latino people to get them to come to this meeting? I'm sorry?
Tough question.
Well, unless you involve them, it's not going to happen. Okay, so you have to make some outreach to them somehow. Okay, so that's all I'm saying. They don't know about this church. It would have been better at Love School, where they are more familiar with, and it's happening in their neighborhood. It's happening in my neighborhood. I have murders in my neighborhood all the time.
What's in this area, you know?
I'm sorry?
You live in this area, you know that the Latino community, there is a code of silence. So they're not going to come up here and start talking about the people.
No, they might not, but they might want to live in a safe neighborhood, and they might want to be a part of this conversation. The criminals aren't going to come to this. No. I understand that, but there are plenty of perfectly lovely, hardworking Latin and black people who do not want their communities to be murder zones.
There are a lot of good Latinos in this area. They're not here, and I understand why they don't come. Okay?
Sure, I do too. But my question that I'm posing is, we have to get them here.
Yeah, I would say that unless you're Latin or unless you're black, you don't understand why they don't come. Because you're not them. Let's not try to put ourselves in other people's shoes. You don't wear it. That's a ridiculous comment that you know why they don't come. And the idea that there's a code of silence in the black community or in the Latin community. I'm black. Y'all know me. I'm everything but silent.
But you're the head of the Justice Coalition. Did the Justice Coalition do anything to get people here?
Oh, absolutely.
I have a neighbor, Latino neighbor, who came over to look at us.
Okay, so my point is we just have to get together. So in moving on, I'd like to talk a little bit about the ARPA fund, because I feel like Doug, like that is something that we're trying to avoid or something. I don't know if you all know it or if you're paying attention, but $28 million has been given out or is being given out in the city, and there's lots of programs and lots of things which I'm sure if you all heard them, you might not agree with them. And unless you're really watching, all tune into the meetings, and I would like to just, because if something was in the paper today, I just want to deal with that, and Marie is here, so I have a couple of questions for you, Marie. One of them I asked you, well, let me just read this quote from today's paper. So it's talking about senior citizens, and there's a program for senior citizens, right? And it's overextended, is that correct? There are too many senior citizens who have applied for the money. Is that correct? Is that correct, Crystal?
Yes, it's not my program, but yes.
Okay. Okay, whose program is it? I'm sorry.
We run through the assessor's office.
So is it ARPA money?
It is.
Okay, so it's ARPA money. So into the paper today, there are people, so this is what is quoted, there are people in the middle who are not 62 yet, and they may not have a severe disability, and they may be working 2 part-time jobs, this is Marie Karuba speaking, to make ends meet, she said. You can't just say it's always one demographic. I think we need to look at some of the other individuals. We're not just dealing with seniors having these issues. Karuba warned that many people in the community are feeling uncomfortable because they do not know how to protect their homes and garages from intruders without making costly improvements to their homes. So are you suggesting that we take money away from senior citizens to put security in people's garages?
No, that is not what I was suggesting.
But that's, okay, please explain then.
The issue was that there are middle class and other individuals, single parents who need assistance. Right now, some of the crime that we're seeing are people who fall in a category where they cannot afford, they have cars in their garages, they're being broken into. I had a gentleman call me, he has a freezer, people were going into his garage and staying there and taking food from him and leaving things. He was concerned. He said he has no way, it's an
So you think ARPA funding should be used for people's garages? Is that correct?
It's a safety issue.
It's a yes or no?
If the garage is attached to the home and it's a safety issue, that is one.
So that takes a priority over giving people who are elderly money for their homes.
No, you're misinterpreting. It is not either or. It's saying in addition to, there are other people that need assistance too that cannot afford.
Well, that's not what this says in the Post-Journal.
It's a snapshot.
That's not what this says in the Post-Journal, and I'd like to ask you one more question, please, because I asked this at the council meeting and I didn't get an answer. You are the head of the Housing Committee, is that correct?
I was appointed to the Housing Commission or as Housing Committee Chair by Councilman Dolphin.
And did you not want that job?
I did not ask for it. I have another.
Okay, let me ask my question, please. What is the 5-year plan for housing in Jamestown?
We are working on it. There are a lot of other things.
So you've been on the council for 20 years, and how many years have you been on the council?
I worked for...
It's not a... Well, I'm just asking her, I'm asking her as the chairman of the committee, what her plan is. Okay. I don't care, really.
Okay, in the interest of time, we're going to have to, excuse me? Real quick question, because we're on a time limit and we have to go.
And this on a positive note
Thank you.
and challenge, okay? I thank you, Eddie, for meeting with the pastors last night. My name's Henry Voss, I'm from 33 Clyde, Tony. And he met with the pastors to talk about the homeless issue. I've heard that we have about 70 homeless, and he met with 60 pastors. That's pretty close to getting at least one homeless in one church. Okay? Now, let me give you another challenge. Okay? There's 30,000 people that live in this town. There's got to be 70 homes that someone can take one in. Okay? Now, it ain't easy. Trust me, I'm doing it. It's not fun. It's hard. He may be homeless in October. I've had him since January. Okay? A friend of mine. But he's got problems. He plays by different rules. His rule is I don't need to start $200 for the past. No. That's his rule. I can't change that. All I do is help. I'm here to be faithful, not successful. I want this town to be successful. You want to be successful? Get the homeless off the street. Take one in.
Thank you. I just want to wrap this up. I know we're on a time limit the church that has given us, but I wanted to just again thank everybody for coming. Real quick.
The police officers, you guys had bikes at one time when you go around the streets. Everybody liked it.
We still do.
They're still doing that. You haven't seen them?
We still do them all summer.
All summer?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm on your north side. I used to see cops on bikes like 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago. Stop my car.
Can I say one thing before you let them go? Can I say one thing? Sure.
As opposed to watching them drive by. And nothing about guns. I'm seeing way too many guns and way too many gun parts floating on the streets. Nobody knows what to do with them. We need a safe place to put guns for the people that have them are not going to be indicted. Also, we got a perfect storm coming up this winter. We got the economy not running too good. We got a lot of people that are going to be really cold. What this man said is really fine. Right now, I don't know what to do. I got one homeless person staying in my house, trying not to steal me blind, and another homeless person sleeping in my Jeep. Because I don't know where else to put her. I see in my neighborhood alone some 50, 60, possibly 70 homeless people. They go to all the people in backpacks. They carry all their belongings every day, and they are going to run into dire straits this winter. We can see it coming. I remember once upon a time, the person that built my house, they had a brick yard, and all the poor people were able to lie on the bricks in the brick yard and stay warm at night. Perhaps the DP of some of this district keep build something where some of these people can be taken care of. Or at least not ease it up this winter, because if we don't, I guarantee you there will be people dying this winter. Like I said, my watch by. I don't know what else to say. I just want to say thank you very much.
Okay, so before everybody leaves, no talking, but by a show of hands, who has a question that they wanted to ask tonight that didn't get asked or answered? If you guys have a question that you want to ask or need answered, I have some cards. I'll give you phone numbers, emails, and anything that you came here that you wanted to ask that you didn't get your voice to be heard on will get answered. Other than that, thank you all for coming. I just want to make sure that nobody showed up and had a question that they didn't get an answer to.
And I also just, again, wanted to thank you for coming. Thank the mayor, the chief. You can always contact any of the council people, so thank you.